So, Honourable Darren Hughes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I rise to take a call on Clause 3, and I apologise to my colleagues who are also seeking the call, because I know that a lot of Labor members take this bill very, very seriously and are keen to put their views over it. I'm sorry? Oh, there's a chance. There's always a chance of that. A bit of preparation doesn't hurt, Mr. Ardern. I'm always keen to be, doing the tutorial of this particular piece of legislation before we speak on it. Sir, I want to follow on for the comments of former President Hipkins, who regaled us about his copy of the Education Act that he kept so close to him. And one of the critical. So, I was never up to such lofty heights. Indeed, it's unfulfilled ambition in that respect. But if it wasn't for the fact that the night schools have been cancelled in this country, I could do a bridge course to get myself back into a university. But sadly, this is not the case. The principal act, though, sir, is the Education Act, which, Mr. Chairman, you need to be aware of this, because that is the clause we're debating at the present time. I saw by that look on your face you're confused where the committee was at the present time. So,
I'm very confused.
And so that is the piece of legislation that, of course, our entire system is founded on and built on. And one of the key phrases in that piece of legislation that all members of Parliament should be very much concerned of and have their mind focused on is the role of universities and tertiary institutions to be the critic and conscience of society. And those are very lofty words, sir, and New Zealand legislation is not often given to lofty concepts. We are very practical people when we write our legislation in terms of what we want to see happen. We don't always write into law such aspirations as that. But that is something that was, when the original 1989 Act was reformed into the way it is now, there was a big debate around that, around whether that should stay or not. And that goes to the heart of the independence of our tertiary sector to act as a critic and conscience of society. And my concern here, sir, is that...
Point of order, Joe Goodhue.
I just seek some clarity from you, or some assistance, Mr. Chair, because it seems to me that we are debating Clause 3, which is the Principal Act being amended, and therefore I would have wondered whether we should be detailing the amendments to the Principal Act rather than the broadest term of the Principal Act, which actually is not under debate.
It is an interesting point of order that the member raises, and this is functionally a debate about why you need to amend the Principal Act. It doesn't bring the whole Principal Act on, and we have sort of skirted into some stuff which wasn't, but I think the member was actually getting back to that at the time. But I am monitoring very carefully what's been said, and members will note that I have a response if we do stray too far. If we stray at all, actually.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And as always, we are so grateful for the procedural expertise of the Mrs. Goodhue, who no doubt is co-authoring the next edition of McGee, such as her expertise in this matter. The point about the Principal Act is that it has to sit in a consistent way for any subsequent amendment. And the argument the opposition is putting forward is that this bill undermines one of the central themes of that Principal Act in a way which almost introduced a foreign concept to the Education Act 1989. And the point I was trying to get to was that the responsibility in the Principal Act, in addition to the broad theme of being a critic and conscience of society, also sets out in its clauses, I just don't have the numbers here, but it's in the 200s from my memory, sets out the requirements to ensure quality across the education system. And our contention is that this amendment, by undermining the students' associations in the way that it will do, and the role that Mr. Hipkins was discussing in terms of their ability to monitor and to advocate on behalf of students for the educational quality of particular programs and tertiary institutions, runs foreign to the Education Act 1989. So the amendment to the principal law renders some of the aspirations, goals and objectives of the Education Act to be irrelevant. And if government members don't get that, then there is something wrong with them, because this is a major change in the ability of the users of the education system. We hear a lot from government members opposite about how they don't want this to be about the control. Our primary schools shouldn't be in the control of teachers because, of course, what would they know? But it should all be about what's best for the consumer at primary level. Yet here we are for the consumers at tertiary level, taking away the ability through this amendment of the the primary piece of legislation, the Principal Act, the Education Act, to be able to deliver a consistently high-quality tertiary education. The undermining of our Students' Association, sir, is something that we are very, very worried about, because these are not light decisions for the committee to have to consider. If the committee passes this clause, it alters the Education Act, and that is a major piece of social legislation in our country. And I know that the Select Committee put quite a lot of thought into what that would mean, and came up in their minority report here, sir. If I just find the correct reference to the services which have come from. Which link back into the education. I'm sorry, I just can't find on my notes here where that was. But the main point, sir, is that we don't believe the change is consistent with the objectives of the Education Act. It's the job of the committee to consider this law, but to defend the Principal Act.
Shane.